Doctor. The wind burned like needles, and each step up the pass felt like hauling a coffin behind me. They chained me to him. Elias Vorn. Killer. Liar. Condemned to hang. But he was the only one who knew the ridge routes. I had the serum strapped to my chest, the last hope for a fevered mining camp 3 days beyond the storm. And I was chained to a man who said this whole route was bait. I kept walking. I didn't trust his eyes. But God help me. I was starting to believe his words. Prisoner. Doc kept glancing at me like I was gonna sprout horns and slit his throat. I didn't need to. The mountains would do it for me. Snow like this ain't just weather. It's a grave digging itself. I told him, straight. The marshal sent him to die. Said, take the West Pass. Quiet. Safe. But that trail's been outlaw turf since the war. They're waiting. Rifles loaded. Cold fingers itching. I ain't got much left to bargain with. But I sure as hell ain't dying irons. 'Cause some bleeding heart healer thought the law gave a damn. Doctor. The map blurred in my shaking hands, ink freezing into smudges. Vorn didn't care. He just stared into the trees, like something was breathing out there. We hadn't eaten in 10 hours. My boots were soaked. Every noise felt like a trigger click. The chain between us pulled taut with each wrong step. He kept muttering directions, corrections, warnings. And God help me, I followed them. Because either he was telling the truth, or I'd chained myself to death and dragged it into the mountains. Prisoner. We ducked into a split in the rock just before the white swallowed the trail. Doc was shaking so hard I thought he'd rattle his bones loose. Lantern barely held a flame, and the wind screamed like ghosts clawing at the cliffs. I told him to sleep in shifts. He refused. Said if we stopped moving, the Sierra might freeze. Said it was human lives depending on that vial. I laughed. You think they'd risk an outlaw escort if they planned to save Ian? That shut him up. But I saw it, doubt cracking through that polished sense of duty like ice beneath a wagon wheel. Doctor, I checked the vial. Still intact. Still warm. I'd wrapped it in wool, tucked near my chest, prayed with every breath that it hadn't frozen. Vorn lit a match, his hands blackened from cold. He was watching me now, not with menace, but with something I couldn't place. Weariness, maybe. We were both dying slowly. The silence between us grew heavier than the storm. Why help me if they're setting me up? I asked. He didn't answer, just stared at the flame, like it held a memory he hadn't burned through yet. That silence scared me more than his smirk ever had. Prisoner. We walked again at night. Safer than light. Outlaws liked daylight for ambushes. They wanted to see fear in your eyes before they pulled the trigger. Moon was thin, barely enough to see the next step. Doc kept stumbling. I pulled him along, the chain biting into both of us. Every crunch of snow sounded wrong. Too clean. Too loud. Then I saw it. Tracks. Not ours. Fresh. Deep. Deep. Boot prints with a wide gait and sharp heels. Not locals. Not miners. Riders. I grabbed Doss' shoulder. We're walking into their teeth, I said. But it was already too late. Doctor, we saw the fire from the ridge. 3 men, maybe 4, crouched low and laughing like devils. Their horses were tethered in a tight circle. Vorn yanked me down into the snow, his revolver already in hand. I hadn't seen him draw it. I hadn't even known he'd kept it. My heartbeat crashed in my ears. I clutched the serum like a lifeline. Told you, he whispered, frost clinging to his lip. They're waiting for you, not me. I wanted to doubt him, wanted to believe some marshal out there still gave a damn. But the fire below burned with intent, not warmth. Prisoner, one of E moved toward the trail, gun drawn, moving careful. That's when I knew. They weren't waiting to rob us. They were waiting to finish us. No loot, no mercy, just erasure. I lined up the shot. The snow swallowed the sound of our flight, but not the fear. That stuff stays with you, freezes into your ribs, just like the cold, just like the chain. Doctor, trees blurred past. Snow slammed into my eyes. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Gunfire ripped through the branches. Sharp, fast, close. Bark exploded inches from my face. Forn dove over a log, dragging me with him, the chain catching and nearly jerking my shoulder out. We landed hard. He shoved snow into the lantern to kill the light. Darkness returned. My pulse didn't slow. Somewhere back there, men were hunting us like wolves. And the only man who seemed to care if I lived was already condemned to die. Prisoner, bullet nicked me. Just enough to sting, just enough to make every breath burn. Doc teed it tight, hands shaking. Didn't ask questions, just worked. That's how I knew he'd never survive alone. We crouched by the creek, moonlight skating across the ice. Every gust of wind felt like a scream waiting to happen. I looked back toward the tree line. They'll flank, I said. Split left, double back. Doc blinked. How do you know? I leaned close enough for him to feel my breath. Because it's exactly what I'd do. He didn't flinch. That's when I started to trust him. Doctor. The clearing opened wide and empty. Too open. I should have seen it. But the pain in my knees, the weight of the serum, the bitter cold, it dulled everything. The first shot cracked and echoed like thunder. Forn tackled me hard, snow bursting around us. He returned fire without hesitation. We slid behind a stump, chain rattling like a death bell. I couldn't tell if I was bleeding or just numb. He covered me like a shield, and in that moment I realized he wasn't just keeping himself alive. He was keeping Ame alive, even if it killed him. Prisoner. Last one bled out in the snow. Eyes wide, breath short. Tried to reach his iron, but I stepped on his wrist. Looked him dead in the face. He knew me, called me by name. Didn't think you'd turn, he gasped. I didn't answer. Just let him watch his last breath fog the air. Doc stood beside me, quiet, hands still red from where he'd stitched my side. We didn't speak until the sun touched the peak. When it did, I turned to him. There's a split in the pass ahead. We take the ridge. We'll make it by sundown. He nodded. For the first time, we walked in step. Doctor, we reached the ridge by mid-morning, boots slipping on ice-slick stone. My fingers were too numb to feel the chain anymore, but I still felt the weight of it. Below us, nestled between tree lines and smoke-trailing chimneys, was the mining camp. I swear I almost cried. Forn didn't speak, just watched. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat was too raw. We made it. Somehow, we made it. And every frozen breath, every shot fired, every mile with death at our heels, led to this moment. The serum was still warm against my chest, and I was still alive because of a man the world had thrown away. Prisoner. Inside the infirmary, it smelled like sickness and desperation. The nurse grabbed the vial with shaking hands, eyes wide with relief. You did it, she whispered. I stayed near the door, still cuffed, boots leaving water on the floor. A kid stared at me from behind a curtain, big eyes, no fear, just curiosity. I looked away. Doc didn't say my name. Didn't have to. Folks looked at me like I was something that crawled in with the wind. But I didn't care. I'd done what I never thought I would. I saved a town I'd never see again. That was enough. Doctor. We sat outside while the sun dipped behind the mountains. The chain between us rested loose on the steps. I held the key in my hand, cold metal, warming slowly in my palm. Forn lit a cigarette with fingers still trembling. Didn't look at me. Didn't ask. He just smoked, eyes on the snowfall. You can take me back now, he muttered. I didn't answer. The key was warm now. Heavy. I turned it between my fingers, then slipped it back into my coat. Tomorrow, I said. And we both knew what that meant. For tonight, we were just men who made it out. Prisoner. I woke before first light. No guards. No chains. Just a busted shackle looped around a post like a question left unanswered. Doc was gone. Or maybe just giving me the choice. The trail stretched north, untouched, unsaid. I stared at the snow, at the way silence made the world feel honest for once. I hadn't earned freedom, but maybe I'd earned a shot at something more than a noose. I walked. Left the post behind. Left the man who didn't turn me in. And I didn't look back. Not yet. Doctor. I took the long road out. Didn't report in. Didn't stop for questions. Just rode. Breath fogging under the trees. Saddle creaking with every frozen step. The loop of twine where the key used to hang flapped gently in the wind. I kept thinking about the ridge, the silence, the weight of the decision. Maybe I'd get stripped of license. Maybe worse. But I'd looked into a man's soul and saw something worth saving. That wasn't medicine. That was faith. Hard-earned. Fragile. And mine to live with. Prisoner. The wind blew hard across the ridge, same as before. I stopped just long enough to bury the last length of chain beneath a drift. No marker. No words. Just snow and silence, and the sky circling above like it remembered us. I don't know where I'm headed. Don't know what waits. But I ain't running anymore. Ain't hiding either. Somewhere back in that storm, I lost the weight of who I used to be. Now, I've still got the frost in my bones.